What's going on, everybody? It's my favorite time of year. It's NFL offseason has started. Uh, for those of you who don't know, my name's Scott, and I like to talk about sports. So I figured I'd start kind of podcasting it a little bit and post it and see who's out there to interact with me because I really like to talk about it, and I'd love to find more people that want to. Like I said, beginning of the NFL year, right? So it's free agency time leading into the draft. It's my favorite time of the year. I love talking about teams being built, right? What is that going to look like for the going forward? So, we're taking a look at the list of the top remaining free agents. So you got Teron Armstead, Allen Robinson, Bobby Wagner, Clowney, Stephon Gilmore, Gilly Lock, Tyrann Mathieu, which was a surprise to me. I really thought he'd be back on the Chiefs at this point with how important he's been to them over the years. OBJ's hurt. J.C. Tretter's getting older. Akeem Hicks. Down the list. There's a lot of interesting players still left that are still here for a variety of reasons, whether it's age. Calais Campbell, Dwayne Brown, Casey Hayward kind of has a weird role. Cordero Patterson, although he blew up this last year. Rob Gronkowski, everyone's got to assume he's going back to the Bucs, right? I mean, he wants to play with Tom Brady. I mean, unless apparently Joe Burrow wants to play with him. That'd be the other quarterback he said he'd play with. Julio Jones was just released, so that's an interesting one. Does he still have it left in the tank? Older edge rushers, Houston Hughes. I honestly, Jameis Winston's the one that surprises me the most that he's still out here, right? Because with everything going on with quarterbacks, I really thought he would get a chance somewhere by now. Especially with like Mitchell Trubisky getting picked up in Pittsburgh for 2 years. I mean, we've seen Winston play recently at a decent level for the Saints. I'm surprised they didn't take him back already, but they're apparently trying real hard for Deshaun Watson, so we'll see how that goes. That's another block that has to fall before, we really know what's going to happen with this offseason. Deshaun Watson currently being courted by the entirety of the NFC South, except for the Buccaneers. So that is interesting. I got some receivers on the move. Juju Smith-Schuster, Jarvis Landry. A lot of interesting players out there, but most of the ones that are left, there's a question about them, right? So whether it's age, productivity and age. I mean, he's been good, he's been bad, he's been up, he's been down. Stephon Gilmore, another good player, getting a little older, coming off an injury. We'll see how that goes. Moving forward, Tyrann Mathieu. That's another one. I honestly thought he would be signed. I know the Chiefs signed Justin Reed to replace him, who's 5 years younger probably at this point, and can play everything. But Tyrann Mathieu was so important to that locker room and that culture that I'm surprised they didn't bring him back. And the rumor is that they were going to move on from him regardless. So that's interesting to me. OBJ showed it at times last year, certainly. But, another big injury late in the season. I'm assuming he gets picked up somewhere, but I don't think it would be quite the payday or the contract he maybe wanted. J.C. Tretter, great player, right? Getting up there in age, but still showed last year in Cleveland that he can get it done, right? I expect him to get picked up to help out maybe, a team that has struggled on the offensive line. The Bengals could certainly use him. Maybe the Bucks try to pick him up, move Jensen over. Who knows? He's got some flexibility there. It'll be interesting to see how he plays. Akeem Hicks, been a really good run defender, stuck on the Bears, right? So it's been hard to really see what he's been doing. Melvin Ingram had a good year last year as part of a rotation, kind of, wasn't the primary pass rusher. Had TJ Watt on their side. Really got to show that he still has it in the tank, but maybe not as an every down rusher. Casey Hayward played really well last year, but again, getting a little bit older, and he's more, suited to that defense, that high cover 3, than he is to maybe some of the other ones. And this is another one. Antonio Brown. Will another team take a chance on him? He has the talent. That's not in question. But is that kind of presence in your locker room something anyone is willing to take on? I don't know. I mean, in the NFL, stats and wins are what matter. and many teams have taken chances on him already, but I think he might have burned his last bridge in Tampa Bay. Calais Campbell, you know, doing really, really well, has been played at a high level for many years, getting older. Now, I'm not saying he's not still a good player. He played well last year and probably still has another season or two in the tank, but I think he's going to wait and see and try to get to a contender potentially. It gives him a chance to win a ring. But, that 6'8 frame, any team could use that. Dwayne Brown, 37, 38 years old, getting older. Not the same stud tackle that he was, but still a very solid tackle in the league. I expect him absolutely to be on a roster come week 1. Cordero Patterson's interesting. To me, he needs to go back to Atlanta that used him to his fullest ability. Now, not to say a team with a inventive offensive coordinator, now that they've seen the blueprint that works with him, doesn't pick him up and use him just the same. But he knows Atlanta. Atlanta knows what they have in him. I expect him to be back in Atlanta, especially if they get Deshaun Watson. Gronk, we talked about, he's going back. Julio Jones, I think this one's going to take a little bit of time to develop, I think, because I think teams are going to want to do their due diligence on his health. Great player when he's healthy. We know that he is getting a little bit older, and I think that might be the question, if he still can stay healthy, because he's been so injured lately. But when he's available, he's a great player. But I think this one's going to take a little bit to come through. Right? We talked about Houston, Hughes, both getting older, could still be rotational pass rushers, but we'll see. Winston, he'll get picked up somewhere. He's too good of a talent not to. It's still young enough that he could develop into something, but he's running out of places to go. Maybe the loser of Deshaun Watson picks him up, whether it's he goes back to the Saints or, if Watson leaves, he goes to the Texans. I don't think he'll go to Atlanta. The Panthers, maybe. But I don't. If Atlanta misses out on Deshaun Watson, I think they just roll with Matt Ryan, who's got such a huge cap number. I can't imagine anybody else is going to trade or want him. Schuster, Landry, both have, different abilities. Juju Smith-Schuster's more of an outside guy. Landry's solidly a slot receiver. And it's a weird one, right? Because a lot of people love him. A lot of people hate him. It's a very mixed bag on who you're getting with Jarvis Landry, right? Steven Nelson, very good at cornerback, undersized a little bit, but seems to play it well and really get it done. Barnett, not really, one-dimensional. He does everything a little bit well, kind of a jack of all trades, but he's not, going to get you double-digit sacks every year. He's not going to do that, but he, as part of like a rotation, maybe like Indianapolis, something like that. They just picked up Yannick Ngakoue today. They have DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, somewhere like that where he doesn't have to be the primary, he can rotate in and out. I think he'd be very effective. Alexander Johnson, interesting story, right? Started late in the NFL. Had some legal trouble, got started late, hitting free agency at 30 years old, but he's only got like 2,000 snaps, right? So he doesn't have a lot of wear on the tires, so potentially has, another 3 or 4 years at a high level for a team because he doesn't have that wear and tear on his body. We'll see where he goes. He could go a lot of different places and probably be an upgrade, so that'll be interesting. Andrew Norwell, solid option as a guard, doesn't blow it out of the water, right? But a solid guard nonetheless. Eric Fisher, another one, average starting tackle. People think they can do better than him, but he's solid, and I think he'll find a role on a team somewhere. Marcus Mariota is interesting. There's been a lot of rumors that he's going to go end up in Indianapolis, right? Indianapolis tried to get Deshaun Watson. Texans said, no, not in our own division. Not going to happen, right? But they're looking for a more mobile quarterback, a safer quarterback that's not going to turn the ball over. Because let's face it, right? They had Carson Wentz, who has stats, right? He's got the stats to back it up. He's a decent quarterback, but he tries to do so much, I think, that he gets himself in trouble, he gets himself hurt. And rumors coming out of most of the places he played right is he doesn't win over the locker room, and that's a problem for your quarterback, right? Unless you're just transcendent talent and you can kind of work through it regardless. People are going to respect you anyways because they're going to win. Wentz doesn't have that, right? He's 40-44 as a quarterback. He's got the stats. I've actually got it pulled up here. All right, 44-40 as a quarterback. So a winning record, but barely. He's got good stats: 20,000 yards, 140 touchdowns to 57 interceptions. That's not bad. 62% completion rate. Decent yards per attempt. The stats are there. He's got talent. Something's just not getting it together for him, and I don't know what that is. So we'll finish out the top 30, and then we'll kind of look at a different list. Some of the players that have already been signed, some of the players that haven't. But Gerald Everett, a solid tight end, more of a pass catcher than really a blocker. Going to log a lot of snaps for somebody. But, another one that's not – he's probably going to be another day or two to see really where he's going to go. We've seen some tight ends get some big contracts that I question a little bit. He's got talent as a pass catcher. He will definitely get picked up. And then Leighton Vander Esch, last one we'll touch on here. Good linebacker, young linebacker, still has a lot of good football in front of him. Biggest issue with him, it seems, lately has been he needs a defense line that's going to keep him, clean, let him kind of move around, do what he needs to do. Block shedding's not always been his best suit, but he can play multiple positions in that linebacking crew, and that's position versatility is definitely going to get him a contract somewhere along the way. Let's pivot over. This was Pro Football Focus's list. We'll pivot over to ESPN's and kind of see some of the guys that have already signed. Let me move myself out of the way here. Some of the guys that have already signed. And a couple others that are on their list that are not on PFF's list, right? So Terron Armstead, we've talked about. He's going to get a contract probably for longer than one might think, 31. But people are playing, especially on the offensive line, 35, 36. Dwayne Brown, 37. He's still playing at a high level. He will get picked up probably to a big contract, right? Marcus Williams, young safety, stud safety. Going to the Ravens is going to help solidify their secondary. The Ravens lost a lot of players this offseason, so he is a huge addition for them. Von Miller signed yesterday, the 16th, to a massive contract that I didn't expect the length, right? 6 years, $120 million. Now, I don't know how that's broken up, but I'm assuming there's going to be an out for the team somewhere in the next 2 or 3 years to where they don't have a huge dead cap hit. Because right now he is signed through his age 38 season. Which I'm not saying he can't do it, right? But he has slowed down a little bit lately. He did have 2020 where he didn't play. He has wear and tear on his body. So we'll see. He's still effective, still a good player. But I don't know if he can be effective for that whole contract, so that will be interesting. Tyrann Mathieu, waiting to get signed. Will get signed somewhere, I'm sure. But I'll be very interested to see where he ends up. Carlton Davis, cheap deal, honestly, compared to what some other cornerbacks in the past have signed. Even this year, J.C. Jackson's contract. Much bigger than this, 5 years, $80 million, I want to say. Carlton Davis signed a relatively cheap deal, 3 years, $45 million, to go back to the Bucs, where he is probably the number one option. Brandon Scherff, another one, getting older, still a very good player, but injuries have limited him. So we'll have to see if he can stay healthy. If he does, he's a good pickup for the Jaguars' offensive line to really help that team with some veteran presence, right? Allen Robinson definitely will be signed somewhere. Kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit for the Bears, but put up stud numbers with, we'll say, subpar quarterback play and a very interesting offensive scheme when Matt Nagy was there. Not sure he used anyone to their full potential, but lots of good years for Allen Robinson. Still, on the right side of 30, we'll say. He still has a few years left in the tank. He will get a good deal. Randy Gregory was going to re-sign with the Cowboys. Rumor is that they wanted some some protection on their end later in the contract where they could have an out against him. So he did not sign their contract and ended up going to Denver instead. So that's an interesting little situation there. Chandler Jones signed a big deal, 3 years, $52 million, I believe, $51 million. I'm sorry. Really good player. I think he, since in the last 6 years, is like the third most sacks in leagues. Very productive player. Going to the Raiders, so him and Max Crosby will form a nice tandem there. Clowney we talked about a little bit. I think he'll sign, but I don't know what the market is for him. Trent Brown, I think he goes back to the Patriots probably at a cheaper deal. But, very solid tackle. He will get signed by someone, getting a little bit older. But he still has a lot of good football in him, I think. So he will get signed. J.C. Jackson, we talked about that. 5-year, $82 million. Ball hawking safety, right? Gets the interceptions. I think since he entered the league, he's got the most. Yes, the most. 25. That's a lot. And he is solid against the pass as well. Doesn't allow a lot of completions. So he's worth this money. Only going to be 26. Going to be a stud for the next few years with the Chargers, who so far I think are winning the offseason, I want to say. And I'll probably make a video with team-by-team breakdowns depending on how this video goes and if I can get past it. But I think the Chargers are having a hell of an offseason. Hassan Reddick, another one, kind of like Chandler Jones, really solid over the last 5 years, 6 years. Goes to the Eagles. He got a good deal. He will do well there. Brandon Graham was injured last year. They needed some more pass rushing help. Hassan Reddick will do it. Help that. Stephon Gilmore. Patriots didn't want to sign him to a long-term extension. Ended up on the Panthers last year. Had a decent year, but injuries and that whole team went downhill in the second half of the year. I think he'll get picked up, but I think it'll be a shorter contract, maybe a prove-it contract with some incentive stuff to see, if he still has it in the tank, but he could definitely be a veteran presence for a team. DJ Chark, another young receiver who has some talent. Injuries have slowed him down, right? He's never played a full season. But as recently as 2019, had 1,000 yards, not double-digit touchdowns, but 8 or 9 touchdowns. He will, if he can have a big year for the Lions of all teams, then I think he's in for a big payday next year. Quandre Diggs, he's going back to the Seahawks. Probably they need him, right, to keep the back half clean, because Jamal Adams really plays more of a box safety than he does pass cover safety, so they need Quandre Diggs on that back half to kind of help that tandem work. Uchenna Nwosu going to the Seahawks, leaving the Chargers. Young player, part-timer. We'll kind of see how he goes. Only had, I think, 5 sacks last year, so young, but he has the speed, so we'll see how he goes. But 2 years, $20 million, kind of a little bit of a longer prove-it deal. If he takes off, this is a bargain, obviously, for the Seahawks. So good deal for them and gives him a chance to really show what he's got. James Daniels, stud guard, kind of been lost in the shuffle a little bit on the Bears. Started 48 games for them in 4 seasons, but young, big, good body control. He will make a difference for the Steelers, who needed help on that offensive line. We'll probably do another 2 here. 2 cornerbacks, as it turns out. Darius Williams, Javarius Ward. Williams is going home to Jacksonville. He's from Florida. Was injured on and off last year, but played well against Jalen Ramsey. And people did not want to challenge Jalen Ramsey, so he got a lot of work, and he held up well. Javarius Ward, another young cornerback, going to the 49ers from the Chiefs. So the Chiefs are losing some secondary players, but Ward was a good corner this past year. He's kind of bigger, so he can do man-to-man really well. He tackles well, doesn't miss a lot of tackles, so he's good against the run. He's good against the pass. He is a, up-and-coming young cornerback who I think the 49ers definitely can use. So I think I'm going to leave it here, guys. probably talked about 50 players, give or take, a couple that weren't on any of the lists that I just wanted to talk about big situations in the league, Deshaun Watson being the chief among them. Tell me what you think in the comments. Let me know who you think was a good signing, who you think was a bad signing, where you think some of these players that are still waiting might end up. And like I said, I'll probably have some more videos depending on how this one does. Team by team, winners, losers, overpaid, underpaid, something along those lines. Like I said, this is my favorite time of the year for football, to see what these teams are going to look like. And really do the team building part of it. So, thanks for joining me. Like I said, my name's Scott. I'm going to try to do this, once a week, probably during football season, maybe twice, again, depending on how this goes. But come talk football with me. I love it, and I love having people to talk to about it, whether it's in the comments. I might start streaming this, weekly to really get some interaction with you guys in real time and see how that goes. But come hang out, and let's watch some football.